Welcome back, everybody. This video is going to be one of those comparisons video. You know, this dog versus that dog, or this dog compared to that dog. And you know, like I say before, sometimes I'm repetitive, but I'm going to try and give some more information or different information on these two dogs. Two of the best dogs in the history of the breed, so nothing is intended or meant to be used for any legal purposes. It's all fact, fiction, history, knowledge, stats, if you will. So this video is on Adam and Crutchfield's, or Stinson and Glover's, Grand Champion Art, and Davis's Grand Champion Boomerang. These dogs were before my time, a little before my time, about 5 or 6 years before my time when I first started. So it'd probably be about 10 years before I got serious or knew a little bit about what I was doing. But they were always talked about. Boomerang was the first either Pit Dog Report or Sporting Dog Journal, or both, registered Grand Champion. And of course, Art is well known. He was owned by, he was bred by Bennett Clayton, and later owned by Stinson and Glover, and then Adam and Crutchfield. And he was stolen. Of course, everybody knows that story. I think he wasn't even 4 years old when he was stolen. So he had his whole breeding career ahead of him at that time. He was bred enough to make ROM, and so was Boomerang. A lot of these dogs, they're not bred as much as you think, or as much as people would think. They have this idea that dogs are bred hundreds of times, and they produce thousands of puppies and this and that based on what they've heard or read, or what they think or believe. But that doesn't happen a lot. I think Art maybe was bred 10 times, maybe. Boomerang maybe the same, maybe, you know, less than 20 times or whatever. But it's not a lot. Even Daibo was only bred about 11 times. At least those that are recorded. So they could have some other breedings that people didn't know about or weren't real familiar with. But it's not in the hundreds like people think, like Jeep or Mayday, like that. And the reason Jeep and Mayday were probably bred so much is because they were more open to the public. They lived to old age, and I think Boomerang lived to old age either. But Baker Davis had him his whole life, as far as I know, and he may have advertised them for stud. But I don't know the circumstances of how many times he was bred. We could look it up. So if a pup, or a male at least, has over 100 offspring, he may have been bred 10 times or 12 times or 15 times. But it's not even in the dozens. That is rare. So these two dogs have the distinction of making all the titles that were available at the time, meaning they became champion first, then they became grand champion, then they became ROM, and although in their time POR wasn't developed yet, they certainly would have had that title as well, because they had enough offspring and enough wins from their offspring to make that title. So I'm not the type to give dogs titles that weren't available at the time, so I don't say they're POR. Some people do, you know, and that's what's happened too, which kind of disturbs me a little bit, is they're giving these dogs way in the past titles that weren't around when they were around. So for instance, you have Blackjack Jr., a reported 9-time winner. 7 of his matches at least were recorded I don't know if they were all reported in the magazine, but they were all recorded. But they didn't have grand champion at that time. And to be champion up until, I think, 1935 or something like that, the UKC was the one that sanctioned fights, pit dog fights. So it had to be a sanctioned UKC match. You had to have a UKC referee present, and it had to be recorded, all parties involved and all that. So that's why a lot of them dogs in the past weren't given that title, because it wasn't available. They didn't have it. So those titles that are added on later, like I said, it bothers me a little bit because those titles weren't around. And because of the rules of having those titles, there isn't enough information on them to say this is what the dog was. Because some of these dogs, they may have been multiple winners, but they might have had some losses too. So you have to have some kind of complete record. And, a lot of times it's just said, he's a multiple winner. And, it's been so long, not all the matches were reported, so and not all of them were conditioned matches per se. They could have been off the chain, like Tacoma Jack, reported as a 9-time winner. And for a long time, I people questioned that. Even Heinzel and Tudor questioned. Al Brown sent a letter, I forget to who, Pete Sparks maybe, and he wrote down Tacoma Jack's record. A couple of the matches are off the chain. They're just rolls, And some of the people on the record, I've never heard of them. Doesn't mean they aren't legit. And it doesn't mean that he was a legit dog. And that's another thing that I'd like to mention. Some of these dogs, it don't matter if they're off the chain. It don't matter if they're recorded. To me, it doesn't matter if they're a multiple winner or a no-time winner or a one-time winner or whatever. If they're a known dog, if they're a badass dog, if they're a great producer, if they're a winner or game dog, that I just like the truth. That's what matters to me. If they quit, that's what it is. And a lot of these old dogs, they did have a lot of battles. And a lot of them were off the chain, but they were for money nonetheless, and they had referees nonetheless, and there was betting and rules and all that. So it doesn't take anything away, in my opinion, from the dog if they don't have these modern titles, but yet they were recorded in history as some of the best. Gas House Dog and Kobe's Pinscher and Kager, and a lot of these dogs. Blackjack Jr., Tudor's Goldie, and Fly of Panama. Some of them had match records, some of them didn't, but they were all top-notch dogs, and some of them were multiple winners, And a lot of them were recorded. There's matches of Tudor's Goldie recorded. I think the one I saw, she won in 22 minutes. She was a badass bitch. It takes nothing away from her if you don't give her that title that wasn't available at the time. So to each their own. You guys do it however you like, and people can keep putting these titles on dogs, because a lot of times they put titles on dogs, modern day titles on dogs in the past, and they don't deserve it. They aren't champions. They aren't grand champions. It's just what somebody told them, what somebody said, and like that. So I'll start with Art, 7-time winner. Like I said, some of it's going to be repeated, but I'm going to throw some other tidbits in there that I didn't cover last time. And of course, it's a different dog. So Jim Stinson told me that his best weight was 43 pounds. And he was matched, I think in his first match he came in underweight because he was, due to circumstances, he was on someone's yard and wasn't fed or watered for 2 or 3 days, so he was weak, and they had the match coming up. They finished the match, and he won in an hour, 20 minutes. But I think in that match he weighed under 43 pounds. And he was a young dog. I'm sure they started matching him way before he was 2 years old. That's how impressive he was. But his best weight was 43 pounds, although he fought all the way up to 46 pounds. Like I said, Bennett Clayton was the breeder. He owned his mama, and you know, Clayton bred some very good dogs. Along with Grand Champion Arch litter, he also produced I forget the name, but he also owned Boleo at the time. Of course, Boleo was bred by Carver, but Bennett Clayton had his hands on some very good dogs. Grand Champion Arch litter he bred. He owned Boleo. He had Priscilla. He had I forget her name, but there's, if you just do your research, you'll find that his name is attached to a lot of good dogs, and he was always in the mix. He was also I believe a Southwestern powerlifting champion. I had a picture, I don't know if I had anymore, I may have lost it, of him deadlifting I don't know how many pounds, and it's a badass picture, you know. Anybody that knew him knew how big he was and how strong he was and how built he was. So he was heavy into that, but he was also into the pit bulldogs and always in the mix there. This is what it says on the online thing. Littermate to champion hurt, and without a doubt one of the greatest of all times. His 7-time winner was stolen, as was his grandsire Eli. Neither was ever recovered. Art wasn't bred very much before being stolen, but still produced more worthy dogs than most. All true. So he's sired by Eli Jr. out of Clayton's Eli Jr. out of Clayton's Java. That's another dog attached to Bennett Clayton, Eli Jr. Even though he didn't handle and condition him, others did it for him. I think Douglas Night Rider either owned him, handled him, conditioned him, or handled condition. I forgot how it went. I'd have to look that up. But I know Bobby Hall handled and conditioned him for his second win, Eli Jr. So that's another dog attached to him. His dam was Clayton's Java. So Eli Jr. is off of Boudreaux's Eli and Boudreaux's Spook. That's that litter with including Eli Jr., Bully's son, Brendy, and Lupe, or Lady. I think it's Lupe. She went to Mexico. A lot of people don't know that there was another female in that litter. Java is out of Carver's Pistol, 2-time winner. See, they put ROM on him. It's way before ROM came about. And again, you may look up his siblings, and there may be champions listed there, but it doesn't mean that they were registered champions. So that's the problem I have with that. I like accurate history as much as possible. A lot of it's hard to get with pit bulls because nobody keeps records, or not accurate records, or not full records. So we get that, you know, where it's just there's questionable stats put out. Java's mama was Rorix's Black Lady. Jim Rorix, another Texas dog man, don't get a lot of credit. Produced a lot of good dogs. Of course, a lot of these people were connected with Maurice Carver. Knew him, with, you know, around him. Got dogs from him. You know, tons of people. Too many to name, so I won't do it here. So we have all this Boudreaux blood on the top. Heavy Boudreaux, Blind Billy, Scrub, all that stuff. With the Carver stuff on the bottom. Pistol was off Elias's Pistol. That's the Elias brothers. And Carver's D. D is one of the females from the Tudor to Black Widow breeding. Rorix's Black Lady is off of Ed Crenshaw's Reno, and Carver's Red Lady. Sad Sack, Polly. So you have that, if you want to put it, you have a lot of the Kobe, Eli, or Kobe, Daibo crosses. Trey Hans Rascals back there, so you have all that. Black Widow, you know, all successful breedings, all making their mark in the history of the breed. Once again, Art's siblings are just mentioned. Crenshaw's Champion Hurt. Clayton's Tadpole. Clayton's Catfish. Stinson and Glover's Double Lot. Divine's Patty. Clayton's Little Java. And I believe the breeding was made 2 times. Repeated. I believe that's what, and I always suspected that. But I think Bennett Clayton's son verified it. He told me that Clayton's Tadpole was from the 2nd breeding. And because I mentioned I had a picture of him, which I do. I'm going to include it in my new picture book coming up. I don't know when, whenever I'm done. But I asked him about Tadpole because I knew nothing about it. I didn't know if he was ever rolled. I didn't know if he was cold. I don't know if they ever did anything with him. But what he asked me was, do you have the picture of when his, before or after his foot was wrecked? And I said after. And in the picture you can see his foot is messed up. And his son told me he was a badass dog. So I guess they at least rolled him, and he proved to be on that caliber of a top dog within the litter, just like most of the other ones were. Catfish is another one that people don't hear about. I forget who had him after Clayton did, or he might have kept him. But I think he won at least one. I remember, you know, in my mind, I don't want to get mixed up with Lou Lewis's Champion Catfish. This is a male named Catfish. But I remember reading about him. Tadpole, you'll see him in different pedigrees. If I'm not mistaken, he's behind Lobb's Jesse. But I know they bred him. I know he produced good dogs. Another one was Stinson and Glover's Double Lot. I know he won 1. I think he won 2. And I think he lost 2. So I think his record is 2-2. And I think Patrick ended up with him. I don't know what happened after that. And for some reason, because he was on the West Coast, and because now there's black dogs coming off the Boleo stuff, supposedly, people think or know that Double Lot is in their breedings rather than Boleo or Boleo dogs. Some people believe that Bull Boy Bob was. This is I'm going to mention just for historical purposes. Some people believe that Bull Boy Bob was they believe Double Lot or Bull Boy Bob was a littermate to Double Lot. This Double Lot was black. Some of the dogs were. Divine's Patty was black. I think she's from the 2nd breeding. But they think Bull Boy Bob was a littermate. I don't know the timeline. It sounds kind of too late for that. He may have been sired by Double Lot. Or he may be bred exactly the way he is. And I know Grand Champion Hope was black. So there's black in those dogs. Without Bull Boy Bob there. And then we know that credit was given to Bull Boy Bob when it was really Smith and Walton's Reuben. They changed that one champion. I forgot his name, but Jack Kelly had to change it when they found out that it was really sired by Reuben and not Bull Boy Bob. Like I said, Divine's Patty. Again, a lot of these dogs, there is controversy over stuff. People say that Patty was a 3-time winner. I don't know if she ever won anything. Not saying she wasn't a good bitch. David Divine spoke on her and told how good a producer she was. But he never mentioned to me that she won 3 matches. And bred to Champion Bruce, who was ironically a son of Boomerang. Hell of a litter, hell of a breeding. Can you imagine putting, a female out of Eli Jr. and Java with a male out of Boomerang, I forget Bruce's bottom side. Probably Divine Blood. Putting that together. And then producing hella good dogs. And the Divines incorporated that stuff into their Cassius Clay stuff. Hella dogs come out of that, and top dogs, fighting in top competition. That's the one thing about the Divines. They went anywhere. They really didn't look for big crowds like that, but they fought the toughest you could imagine all over the place. Originally from Kentucky, moved to Florida. So you have all this competition. You know, up in Chicago they would go, and down to wherever, Georgia, and all over the place. Tons and tons of great dogs. So, and also Clayton's little Java was out of that. You'll see her in pedigrees here and there. But all in all, a hell of a litter, or a hell of two litters. Probably Art and Hurt and maybe Double Lot was from the first litter. Tadpole, Patty, and the other two, Catfish and Little Java, I don't know, but those two were from the second breeding. So some of the offspring, and I missed a couple last time, and to add some more. Thrift's Champion Bumper. Bumper was the dog that beat Champion Argo, who was Champion Jocko's littermate. So Jocko was a 4-time winner. Argo was a 4-time winner who lost to Champion Bumper. And then Apple, I think, was a 2 or 3-time winner. And she either lost to Molly B or she lost to a daughter of Molly B. But just stiff competition left and right. Bumper, beautifully built animal. If you guys see a picture of him, beat top competition. Produced some good dogs. Wasn't bred that much again. You'll see him in Boyle's pedigrees. He's bred to a daughter of Dirty Mary. Hathaway's Layla is another one. Clayton's Joseph, another offspring. There, Bennett Clayton making a breeding and producing Joseph. Adam and Crutchfield's Champion Luke, 4-time winner, 1-time loser. Drew Favre's Champion Luke. 2 Champion Lukes out of the same dog, out of Art. So Adam and Crutchfield's Champion Luke was out of Bunce's Priscilla, Buns and Company. If you look that up, Frank Bunce, that's what he used to go by. Rest in peace, Mr. Bunce. And then Favre's Luke was out of Champion Candy, and Champion Candy, I think, was a Kingfish bred bitch. But there's a breeding Candy to Art. Nothing really in common. Just 2 great dogs put together and produce good dogs. That happens. I mentioned Lobb's Jesse. You'll see him. Brown's Art Jr. If you read, anybody happens to have copies of the old Pit Pal magazine put out by Butch and Candy House, a great magazine, one of my favorites. You'll see Art Jr. in there. Hell of a match. Just back and forth. It goes some distance. They're wrecking each other. Big dogs. Solid match. Solid dogs. Both of them top notch, according to the report. I don't know what happened. Maybe they didn't survive, or maybe he did, but I lost track of Big Art after that. Crutchfield's Champion Alex. There's David Crutchfield, I think was his name, going on off his own and having his own dogs separate from sharing Art with Dave Adams. They bought them together. O. Stevens Bubbles, great producer. You'll see her in breedings. I think she was cold or something like that, but nonetheless, she produced great dogs. Champion Tammy being one of them. Tammy you'll see in Ozzie Stevens breedings. Adams Grand Champion Mike. And I believe that magazine that they have where it shows them a dog in there, a pit match, which exposed the breed, which was not good press for the breed. A lot of people think that's Art in there. It's not. It's Grand Champion Mike, actually. That's what I've been told. Adams Champion Queenie, who is out of Tom Lake Spider, who is a legitimate ROM female. That Spider, I believe, is from the old, what do you call it? It's old, some of the last Leitner blood, I think. Old Leitner blood. Wayne Tomzik, I think that's where Cherry Bomb came from, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm going on memory. Carter's Champion Joe's another one. Trussell's Midget, You'll see they give her the PRR title. That was before her time, but she was a great producer nonetheless. Midget was out of Howard's Black, Georgia. Heavy Daibo female. So you see this pattern of breeding. You know, Carver did it. You have the old Kobe Leitner stuff bred to the Daibo stuff. You know, Freddie Jones did it. Ed Crenshaw had some. What's his name? The old man with the used to trade dogs with Freddie Jones from California. Ed Crenshaw put a lot of good dogs in Freddie Jones' hands, and Leo Kennard's hands. That's who I was thinking of. So Leo Kennard had a lot of this stuff too. Traded dogs back and forth. Reno, Major, Diamond, all these, you know. But Freddie Jones was a top competitor, and he used to travel all. You know, he went to Texas, lost to Pitt General. You know, he'd been to Louisiana, Mississippi, where Kennard is from, matched dogs there, and all over California, the West Coast, Washington, all that. Died young, rest in peace, Freddie Jones, in a car accident. But for the time he was here, just top notch. The original California kid, you know. So that's some of the more information on Grand Champion Art. Now, Grand Champion Boomerang says here, produced. Now, the problem with Boomerang, a lot of his Offspring matches weren't reported, so he's not credited with all the champions that he produced, which a bunch of them. But for history's sake, I'll just read what it says here. Produced Demuke's Champion Dallas, that's James Demuke, you'll see him in there. Lloyd's Champion Gator, Holt's Champion Redneck, Coleman's Champion Sachamo, Giroux's Champion Patty, Divine's Champion Bruce, Irish Jerry's Champion with Pool Hall Red. Grand Champion Boomerang was a Sporting Dog Journal first Grand Champion. He beat Howard Teal twice and was a 3-time Best in Show winner. Littermate to Brown's Champion Nell, Petronelli's Fox, and Art's Missy. There's Giroux's Patty was also a champion, legitimate champion off of Boomerang. I know Miss Pool Hall Red was never a registered champion, but she won 5 and lost 2. Both of her losses are well over the hour. She lost game, never quit, just an insane, intense, screaming demon type of bitch. Beat some top dogs too. I think she beat Divines in like 5 minutes, you know. And it wasn't, you know, overwhelming like that. I don't think Divine's female started or something like that. But she beat some tough competition. Lost to some top dog men too, and top dogs. His match weight, from what I remember, was around 39 pounds. So even if they were around at the same time, competing at the same time, there's too much weight difference where they wouldn't put them together. People are always saying, why don't they come down 2 or 3 pounds? And why don't you come up 2 or 3 pounds? I'm not saying it isn't done, but the outcome a lot of times isn't very good, especially coming down in weight. You cut them down. Now, if a dog is matched above his natural pit weight and you bring them down, which has happened a lot of times, there's no problem with that. They're coming to their natural weight. But if their natural weight, like Art, is 43 pounds, and you're bringing him down to 39 pounds, he might not be the dog you thought he was. And somebody missed the mark. As well, bringing Boomerang up from 39 pounds to 43 pounds, he wouldn't be a grand champion unless he was weak at 39 and brought him up to 43, which was more towards his natural weight. But that's not the case. Baker Davis had too much experience. He was too good of a dog man, knew what he was doing, knew bulldogs, was a bulldog man, conditioner, breeder, handler, knew every aspect, referee, whatever you want to call it, whatever title you want to put on there. He was too good to do that, make mistakes like that with a great dog like Boomerang. And his record is impeccable. Boomerang, Champion Shivo, Champion Midnight Cowboy, and all these dogs he produced, Zeb and Geronimo, and all this stuff. At least he's behind a lot of them, which I'll mention some of them. His sire's Carver's Pistol. So you see there's a little bit of commonality between him, at least on pedigrees. Once we bring up Carver, but that's not true, that's not true. Carver himself said that famous line, I'll give you the cake but not the recipe, all that, this and that. People accepted it, they understood it. At least he didn't lie about that part, even though he didn't put the correct pedigrees on some of his dogs. That's the way he was. It's not uncommon, especially with game fowl guys. They don't tell you how their birds are bred. Some dogmen don't tell you how their dogs are bred. That's their prerogative. And if you're going to get a dog from them and they're going to fake peds or whatever, it's your own thing. Most people didn't care. If it was a good dog from Carver, they wanted it, even if they knew the correct pedigree. On the flip side of that, some of the pedigrees Carver put out, they are true. I don't know which one. I don't know which ones are fake. All I know is what I read and heard. Unless it's come out of Carver's mouth, or someone like Norman Houghton, who was honest and actually said how Butcher Boy was bred. That I believe, because it's his dog. He was there. He raised the dog, and pedigrees are similar. So we also hear Carver, oh, that's really an Ironhead dog. All them dogs can't be Ironhead dogs. Ironhead wasn't around when some of them dogs were around. So putting an Ironhead label on every Carver male that comes along is ridiculous to me, because the dogs are bred similar. They're all related. And they look similar. So if you look at pictures, depending on the time frame, all that stuff, if you look at pictures of Pistol and Ironhead and Cracker and some other dogs, they all look the same. Blind Billy, whatever you want to say. People say all kinds of crap. And some of these people get it wrong because they're saying, oh, he's really off of that dog. No, the dog was dead and long gone before that dog was ever born. So giving specifics on which pedigrees are true, I don't know. So I always go by what's put down. For me, when it comes to Carver, don't matter, it's a Carver dog. A lot of them are similarly bred. Most of them are related, and that's what a breeder does. So it doesn't really matter to me that much what someone does with their dogs. And most breeders, their dogs are going to be related in some fashion, form, or another. Some close, some distant, some little bit, some a lot, medium, half, whatever it is. That's why they look similar. And that's why they click together. That's what a breeder does, My stuff's been around for 40 years. And to this day, some of the dogs come out looking like they did 40 years ago. They look like Mr. Rowdy, or they look like Bill, or they look like Big Red, or they look like Sissy, or they look like, Alex, or whatever, That's just genetics. They're passed on, traits. So that it's the same with Carver dogs. That's why a lot of them look the same. Some of them look different. They're crossed, whatever. They're going to be different. But over a period of time, a lot of them are going to look similar, and they're going to, back in the day, they're going to fight similar. They're going to behave similar. Their phenotype is going to be similar. And the genotype, they're going to have a lot of commonalities with that too. It's just, what is it going to produce? So Boomerang, I'm not sure why they call him Boomerang. Maybe he kept coming back, wouldn't stop. But devastating dog. Some people say he was the best dog they ever seen, during his time and all that. I do not doubt it. Like I said, Baker Davis, top dog man, wasn't scared of anybody. He called out everybody. I respect him for that. So he's off of Carver's Pistol and Miss Spike. Miss Spike, Pistol's off of Elias's Pistol, Carver's D, same thing. Trahan's Rascal, Boudreaux's Gypsy, Tudor's Dival, Carver's Black Widow. All good producers. Carver's and Miss Spike, of course, out of Tudor's Champion Spike, Womack's Mert. Mert was litter mate to Bolio and Mendocino and Goras in Mexico. So again, how can you miss with these breedings? All these top dogs put out, and you'll see Womack's Mert in others. Miss Spike was a litter mate to Stockton's champion Big Liz, 3-time winner. it's the same kind of you know, if you want to say Rascal, Daibo, Black Widow, Boudreaux stuff on the top, and then you have the Carver stuff, Daibo to Gordon's Red Lady, Fitzwater's Goldie to Susie. So you have that Carver, Tudor, Corvino. You know, the thing is, when I start throwing names out like that, it's because a lot of these people traded dogs back and forth, or sold dogs back and forth to each other, or acquired dogs from each other. We all know Carver had Black Widow, Tudor had Black Widow, someone else had Black Widow, whatever. They made breedings to her, and you know, she was bred to Daibo, Kern Lucky, Tudor Spike, Klaus Zeke. You know, everybody wants their hand on a great female producer, as well as a male. But like I always say, the producers that are females are like gold, and these two that are behind Boomerang, Carver's D, out of Tudor's Daibo and Carver's Black Widow, and Womack's Mert out of Fitzwater's Goldie and Bates Susie, were two of the best during their time. So again, Boomerang comes from a very successful litter. And you notice with a lot of these dogs, it's very rare where it's just one dog in the litter, or one dog made it and they become famous as a pit dog and a producer. It happens, but it's more common with dogs like Art and Boomerang, where they come from successful litters. Higher percentage of litters than just one or two dogs in the litter. And maybe not all of them are matched. Some of them are, but most of them produce good dogs too, even if they weren't matched, like with Patty or Little Java, you know. So his siblings are Brown's Champion Nell. She was a 4-time winner. Art's Missy was a 2-time winner. Petronelli's Fox was a 1-time winner in 47 minutes over Jack Kelly. He always used to tell me about that, and he wrote about it too. There was also another one out in Arizona named Rudy Tooty, who was a 1-time winner. If you look on the back of the Sporting Dog Journal or Pit Dog Report, whichever it was. If you look on the back of those magazines, where Carver used to advertise all his wins and losses, which I thought was very impressive. Didn't matter if the dog lost, he'd still put them on there. He just wanted people to know all the dogs that he produced. And I'm sure it helped with the sales. A lot of great dogs. You'll see Rudy Tooty there, 1-time winner. You'll see Miss Pool Hall Red. You'll see another dog that people mistake for Miss Pool Hall Red, named Pool Hall. I think it was Duprell's Pool Hall. That's not Miss Pool Hall Red. That's a different dog. You'll see Honey Bunch there. You see Midnight Cowboy and Shivo and Boomerang and Bo Leo, and you see all these famous dogs that we talk about, produced by Carver. Prince and different ones, even some you don't even know a lot about, you know. Champion Diamond and Monkey Dog, different dogs. But Rudy Tooty was a litter mate. Now, I heard he wasn't much of a dog, but he did manage to win, and I don't know what happened to him afterwards. But that's a very good litter. You know, Willie Brown was a top dog man too. To have Nell, 4-time winner in that tough Southwest competition of Texas and all that area around there, is impressive to win 4 matches. So Offspring, Lloyd's Champion Gator or Sorrell's Champion Gator. That's Rick Sorrell's, not Bert Sorrell's. I made that mistake of mixing up, you know, Bert and Rick Sorrells. They're not related as far as I know. Of course, Rick Sorrell's heavy Boomerang stuff. Mostly what he ran. Bert Sorrells did have some Boomerang blood. Some people say he had Boomerang there for a while. I don't know if Boomerang ever left Baker Davis's yard, but he did have Boomerang dogs. In fact, when I visited him, he had an old female there that you'll see in pedigrees. Sorrell's Miss Boomerang. So he had a Miss Boomerang there. Of course, Woods Miss Pool Hall Red, 5-time winner, 2-time loser that I mentioned. Her litter mate, Hyde's Julie, And Morphine was a one-time winner, one-time loser. I've been told before that Morphine and Julie, it's the same dog. I don't know if that's true. But you'll see her or them in pedigrees. It's just like some people say Tana and what's her name? Meanie are the same female. Could be. You have to tell. Ronnie Hyde kind of talked about it a little bit. He made the breedings, of course. He would know. He never mentioned that to me. I spoke with him several times. But some people say that's what he said, that they were the same female. They look the same. I have pictures. They're going to be included in my book too. Really can't tell from the angle to say, yeah, they're the same female or they're mother and daughter even. You know, although they look similar, it's just the angle. The one I have of one of them, she's up like that, so you can't really see. Other than, you know, she's short and squatty and has that ear crop like a lot of them had at the time. Johnson Zeb, very, very good two-time winner. Some people say a three-time winner. Patrick Blitz, one-time winner. Holtz, Raymond Holt, of course, Jay Carver's Redneck. Some say a two-time winner, three-time winner. Like I said, these records are sometimes they're not accurate. I'm not saying these dogs weren't three-time winners. They very well could be, or more. It's like I talk about Champion Brutus, you know, Ronnie Ennis Champion Brutus. Legitimate champion. Some people say he's an 8-time winner. A lot of these dogs definitely won more than the records show, but since they weren't reported, it's not counted towards their record. But there's a bunch of them that won a lot more than that, you know. Just like Son of Midnight Cowboy, not Cracker Jack, maybe Happy Jack, 8-time winner as well, something like that. Definitely a 3-time winner. I've spoke about him. Alexander's Amos Moses. I had some of that stuff from Boyle that had that blood in there. Divine's Champion Bruce. Gibson's Annie, who was the mother of one of the best ever, Smith & Walson's Bad Billy. Badass job. Dog. Johnson Smokey, a 2-time winner. There's Patrick's Miss Booner. Sorrell's Miss Boomer. Davis's Mr. Baker. Jay Carver's Moonshine, who became Lloyd's Moonshine. Giroux's Champion Patty. Also, I believe Geronimo was behind, I'm not sure if he was off Boomerang or a grandson of Boomerang. And I'll say this about Boomerang dogs, the ones I was familiar with. The LA Dream Team had a bunch of them. Line-bred Boomerang dogs, outcross Boomerang dogs, three-quarter, that was their staple. Captain called it the Boom. Rightly so. Because a lot of them were rough and fast, hard biters. And, you know, I went into the LA Dream Team, you know, in competition, and I seen a lot of them. I refereed some of them. Just good dog. I have a lot of respect for the captain and his team. Randy was part of the team back then. Had a lot of respect for him. He's a good handler. And when I handled it was against the captain, but there were different people involved. But it's always the captain at the head of the ship, if you want to put it that way. And he didn't care if a dog won or lost or how many times it won or lost. He matched it over and over again. He had several champions, more than a few ROMs too. That's how active they were. And some very good dogs. I really liked his champion Wyatt dog, Wyatt Earp. Very good dog. Smart, heavy mouth, tough dog. And they'd match him 14 months, 5 years. I just, you know, you can criticize people all you want, but when you're out there doing it and you're going into top competition and you're beating these people and you're losing to some of them, you got to have respect for a person like that. Everybody has their own way. And he explained why he did what he did and how he did things. So he wasn't hiding anything. And he never lied about his dogs. And like I said, he had some very good dogs. So on the West Coast, there was that. Also, I seen some Jeep Boomerang crosses. Very good dogs. One of the best I ever seen was a little Jeep Boomerang dog. Hard biter, rough as hell. He was never matched, but just a top dog. I would have been proud to own him. And there were other ones, you know, and Boomerang was that kind of blood. It just eventually got around to everywhere. Crossed good with the Boleo stuff, crossed good with the Bully Sun stuff, you know, the Midnight Cowboy and Shivo, and it worked with a lot of different, you know, Giroux had it up in Canada, and people on the West Coast, California had it, and people in the Deep South had it, and on the East Coast had it, and up in New York, and all over the place. So there's you know, it gets to where you start following the dogs themselves, and you see their offspring. Okay, and then they're producing offspring. Boyles used it, you know, Doug Cousins and Bulldog Heaven, and had all these different dogs. Even some people I won't mention, but very successful with the blood. It starts spreading out, and it starts going everywhere. So you have the fox blood up in, you know, Petronellis were from Massachusetts area. They had Sioux Boy, and they had fox, and they had some Corvino. I forgot how the Corvino dog they had. They were just real successful, right? Went into top competition over there. So that fox blood that they had was bred to the guys from New York, Uptown Boys, Champion Snubby. A lot of good breeds. Irish Tim had the blood, and you know, Champion Lotion or Lockin was from there, and all this stuff. Well, that Snubby fox blood made its way to Europe. Very successful in Europe. That's where you get Limey's Tug, and you get bred to the Champion Spike blood. You know, the Hammond's Rufus stuff, and just top dog, man. And of course you have St. Benedict had some of that stuff, and along with the Limey Kennels and different guys there, and known to be very good breeders, top conditioners and handlers like that. So it made its way around, and some of the breedings are very interesting, you know. But I just wanted to give a little bit credit, making kind of a comparison of two dogs that reached the summit of the American Pit Bull Terrier breed. Champion, Grand Champion, ROM, POR, Hall of Fame, whatever you want to put. Just some great, great dogs. Owned, handled, conditioned by some great, great dog men. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. More on the way. Still have these shirts available. They're selling good. Thank you for those that purchased them. The feedback's always good on my stuff, which, you know, I'm happy to hear that. Little to no complaints, and I appreciate everybody's support. Do some more videos, maybe another one with the musician coming up. Thank you.